Tonight, I'm going to ask questions and demand answers. That's what prosecutors do. We don't know what motivated Darrell Brooks, the assassin who tore through the lives of multiple families, killing 6 and injuring 60 more, nor do I care to know his motive. What I care about is that Thanksgiving didn't happen for these families, nor the Christmas holiday these folks began to celebrate on that day. An innocent parade, violently interrupted by an evil force unleashed on the streets of Waukesha, Wisconsin. It didn't need to happen. Tonight, I ask why, not just as a prosecutor, but as a mom. Because Americans deserve to be able to go to parades and tree lightings and malls without the threat of a career criminal killing them. Why? Why are people like Darrell Brooks, a lifelong felon, a career criminal, a convicted sex offender with multiple felonies, multiple firearm and assault convictions, a serial domestic violence abuser who had an active warrant for bail jumping, who then ran over his girlfriend with his car and is granted $1,000 bail? Why are these people allowed to continue to act out their lives of violent crime like Brooks did last Sunday? Why? How is it that 11-year-old Jesselyn Torres, dancing in that Christmas parade, lies unconscious today in a hospital with a broken pelvis, a broken femur, a fractured skull, laceration to her lungs, and injury to her kidney? Why did 8-year-old Jackson Sparks' parents have to bury him this holiday season? Why? Why does this happen? I'll tell you why. Because evil degenerates like Brooks, who are a clear danger to the rest of us, are allowed to roam our streets because Democrat leftist legislators, Democrat mayors, progressive Soros-funded DAs, and judges with their heads up in the clouds and other places as well allow them to. They want them out. They don't care about you or any other victim. So when you go to the polls in November, of course, the presidency, congressional representatives, senators, incredibly important positions. But if you want America to continue to exist, every township, borough, state house, state senate, judicial race, DA race, sheriff race, school board race is what you need to focus on, and focus fast. Because these Democrat DAs, legislators, and judges will continue their march to keep criminals out of jail. Take a listen to this one.
The Breathe Act proposes emptying federal detention facilities within 10 years. To what extent have you wrestled with any potential downsides of releasing into society every single person who's currently in a federal prison?
Yeah, I think that everyone's like, oh my God, we're going to just release everybody. That's not what
I'm...
Yeah, but did you see how many people are mentally ill that are in prison right now?
No, I know, but the act that you endorsed actually says release everyone in 10 years.
But think about it. Who are releasing?
But there are like human traffickers.
Oh, I know.
Child...
Rashida Tlaib. These people want to empty prisons of those already convicted and literally end law and order if we don't stop them. If we don't get them out of office, they are destroying America and the criminal justice system. They are a danger to you, your family, your home, and your business. The truth is that I have faith in the criminal justice system. I don't have faith in many of the players who make decisions before cases get to a jury, and neither should you. But when cases finally make it to a jury, we the people do the right thing. Evidence. Kyle Rittenhouse was acquitted of shooting 3 men. His case, a textbook example of the legal use of self-defense. No matter how hard the president, the mainstream media, and race baiters tried to make this about white supremacy and domestic terrorism and BLM, the jury saw the facts and rendered a just verdict. Evidence. The 3 defendants charged with the intentional murder of Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia were all found guilty. That was a textbook example of racism and hatred in action. And but for one juror, all the jurors were white, and they convicted 3 white men of killing a black man. No racism there. Evidence. George Floyd's murderer was a white cop, Derek Chauvin. A jury convicted him of murder. A white cop convicted of killing a black man. Again, the proper verdict. No racism there. They didn't need to burn down the streets and businesses and cities and burn down livelihoods. You see, because Americans are fair, Americans get along. We do it every day in every part of this country. And this claim of racism comes from the race baiters and those who seek to divide us for their own gain. They want to destroy America. They want to teach our children to hate us because we're racist. The DA in the Darrell Brooks Christmas parade case tried to blame the $1,000 bail on some low-level assistant DA. Who does this guy think he's kidding? DA Chisholm is a progressive who for years let Darrell Brooks get away with all kinds of crimes and did nothing, not ready for trial. Why? Because his office's stated policy goes like this. Quote, "We are focused on reducing the use of incarceration in nearly all cases. Overall, prosecutors prioritize addressing the root causes of criminal behavior. Quote, trying to find ways to avoid prosecution in more cases and to see what can be done in terms of alternatives to prosecution." Close quote. For one, I don't give a damn what the root causes of criminal behavior are, and neither should you. I only care about the victims who never chose to be a part of the system in the first place. And a primer. Bail is constitutional. It's meant to ensure the defendant's return to court and to consider how much of a danger the individual is if not remanded. Now, this dirtbag was unleashed on the streets by a DA whose office is loaded with progressive anti-victim programs and who was chastised by a federal court for a political investigation against then-Governor Walker. He was more of a political operative and a social justice engineer than a real prosecutor. And ironically, Chisholm once admitted that his progressive reforms would, quote, get people killed. Quote, you bet, guaranteed. But that didn't invalidate his urge to let criminals run free. But with this leftist DA was a judge who was similarly incompetent. This judge was so inept, so clueless, or just woke, or just didn't give a damn that he allowed someone already charged with the crime of bail jumping to be bailed yet again on $1,000, even when that judge knew of the life of crime that Darrell Brooks led for 22 years, victimizing others, while he was allowed to go free and live his best life. This can no longer be tolerated. I don't give a damn about the criminal or why he or she does what they do. I only care about the victim, and you better start caring too, because sooner or later, either you, a member of your family, someone you care about, someone you know, will have their lives disrupted, torn apart, or destroyed by a dirtbag we knew was a danger, but that the leftists didn't want to prosecute. Do you have the will and the courage to pursue justice on behalf of crime victims in America? Because every time a victim is ignored, or a crime goes unpunished, or violence is excused under these progressive, leftist, hateful, anti-American mayors, Democrats, our society erodes further, becomes harder, meaner, and more violent. And no one wants to believe that predators and murderers roam freely in our midst, or that brutal acts are committed all the time by people who should be in jail. But make no mistake, the path we are on right now, unless we stop it, will lead to the destruction not only of the criminal justice system, but America as the land of the free and the land of justice. And that's my open. Let me know what you think on my Facebook and Twitter, #Judge Jeanine.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.